Welcome everybody. In this video, we're going to take a look at the popular Tailwind CSS library and how we can make a quick project using all of the core features. So Tailwind is something which I've been getting more and more into recently and begun using it on some personal projects. I found it really enjoyable and also quick and easy to get a great looking website in a very little time. In this video, we're going to build a coffee shop project, which we see just here. It's going to be fairly simple. We'll have the header up at the very top with a title and also some nav links, a large header image, and then below this we'll have some sections which could be linked to different sections of our site or also a e-commerce store. So this is what we're going to build using the Tailwind library. And as we see here, the Tailwind CSS library is utility first. So what this means is we take advantage of the provided CSS utility classes, and all we need to do is to add them as classes. So if you've used something in the past, such as Bootstrap, you'll be used to structuring components by creating nested elements, such as a wrapper div, and then we add all of the content inside in a structured way. Tailwind, on the other hand, allows us to create our own HTML markup and create our content exactly how we want it to look. All we need to do is to then add these classes to each individual element, giving us fine control over the look and feel of our site without enforcing any strict structure. So if we take a look at this example, we see that the wrapper class is MDFlex. This means that on medium devices and above, this section will make use of the flexbox, and then we can use the flexbox properties inside just like this. The image has large rounded corners, which we can see on the example just above. And then below this, we have various utility classes, which will set the text colors and also size. So without wasting any more time, let's jump into our project where we can see some of these classes in action. I'm going to begin by creating a new folder on the desktop and call this Tailwind Coffee, and then drag this into your text editor. So all we need to do to begin is to create our index page, just like we would do with any normal website. Command or Control N, and then save this inside of our project folder as the index.html. So Visual Studio Code has the built-in emmet commands, so we can type in HTML:5, and this will provide the structure for our project. Let's start with the title inside of the head section, and then we can move down to adding some content into the body. Let's start with some content in the header element up at the very top of our page, and this is going to be the wrapper for our title and also the links. The title up in the top left, I'm going to add as a P element, and this can be the title of Tailwind Coffee. We will add the Tailwind library in just a moment, but for now, let's add some content to work with. Then on the right hand side, if we take a look at our final version, we're going to create our nav links with an unordered list. Create our unordered list, and then our list items inside of home. Let's duplicate this. The second one can be a link to our store. And then the third one is going to be for our locations. If you take a look at the description below, there is a link to some images if you would like to use the exact same images which I've used. Alternatively, you can download your own and add these to the images folder inside of your project. So I already have these available. I want to paste these into our Tailwind Coffee project. And inside of this folder, we have 7 different images. One is going to be this large background image, and then the other 6 are for the sections just here. So I'm going to right click on the name inside of this tab, copy the path to this file, and then paste this inside the browser so we can now get to work on our styling. So I'm going to include the Tailwind CSS library by using a CDN link. This can also be downloaded from the Tailwind site. If we go to the Get Started section, there is lots of different ways to set this up and install, but I'm going to scroll down to the very bottom of the page. We can install this using a package manager, Or if we're just using a simple HTML project, we can make use of this CDN link down at the very bottom, copy this, and then paste this into our head section. If we now save this file and reload the index page, we'll see an instant change to our styling. This is because of the default styling which is provided with Tailwind called pre-flight. And if we scroll down, we can see exactly what is included with these base styles. We can see that by default, the margins are removed and also the headings are unstyled. The same for the lists, and also the images are set to be block level. And this is all built on top of the normalized.css, which is a popular way to provide consistent styling across multiple browsers. So now we know this has taken effect, we can now get to work with adding some utility classes to our header section. In fact, we can even add them to the body section, and these will apply to all of the content nested inside. So here we can add some general classes which we want to provide to our full page, such as setting the font family. I'm going to go for a generic font serif. And if we go back to the Tailwind documentation, all of the options are available in this sidebar. This particular one is available under typography inside of the font family section. We're also going to set the base size with the font size property, and I'm going to go for the text XL. All of these different values will apply a font size based in rems, and we can see the conversion in this table just here. We can also set a text color and also the shade too. So for example, I'm going to go for text gray 200, and we see the equivalent gray color on the right hand side. So let's start by adding the font size. I'm going to go for text XL, and we can also add anti-alias to provide some font moving too. Let's save this and reload our project, and we can see the font size is now a little larger with our different font family too. Next up, we're going to move down to the header section where we're going to make use of the flex box. So let's add the class of flex. This will apply the flex box for all screen sizes. By default, Flexbox will apply the flex direction of row. We can override this in Tailwind by using flexcol to set the default direction to be column. I'm also going to set the items to be in the center, since we're going to be styling with a mobile first approach. So let's save this, and if we shrink the browser down to the smaller mobile size, our items are now centered in the middle of our header. To make these stand out, I'm going to change the background color by using the value of BG Gray and also the shade of 600. We can also set the text color with the text-gray and also set the shade of this too, and I'm going to go for 200. Save this and reload, and we'll now see our colors taking effect. We can also add some margin and padding too. If we go back to the documentation and take a look for the spacing section, here we'll make up a class with P for padding, and then use a dash to create a rem value. So for example, P-6 is the equivalent of 1.5 rems, and we can also set this to single sides too. If we want the padding to be on the right hand side, we could use the value of PR, followed by the rem value. We can use the value of X, so this will apply on the X-axis of left and right, and also apply vertical padding with the value of Y. I'm going to use the padding value on the top and bottom with PY, and then set the value of 6, and then set a smaller value on the X-axis. Save this and reload our project. We can also shrink this back down to our smaller size. Okay, so let's next work with our Tailwind coffee title inside of our P elements. These utility classes are also going to be used here too. We can first begin by adding some padding to the bottom of our text. We do this with P, and then the single side with PB, and the value of 4. I'm going to set the font weight to be medium, and also set the text size to be 2XL. Save this, and over to the browser, we can reload this, and our styling will now take effect. Next up, the 3 links just below this. We're going to start with the unordered list, and making use of the flexbox. I want these links to be across the page, so we're going to set the value to be flex row. Save and refresh. And we also need some spacing in between each one of these. Now we can do this by adding some margin or some padding, or if we go over to the documentation, we also have a handy utility helper, which is space between. We can add a certain value of spacing, either horizontally or vertically between the child elements. Since ours are across the page, we're going to add some spacing on the x-axis, and we can do this with space -x -4. And this is a quick and easy way to add some nice spacing between child elements. On the final version, below our header, we have this large image. So let's go just below our header section and add our image tags. The source is the images folder, and the provided image is background.jpg. The alt text, and reload. So this is the mobile first styling complete for the header section. If we stretch the browser to be even wider, I want to place the title on the left hand side and the links over on the right. We're going to do this inside of the header section and make use of the responsive classes provided with Tailwind. At the moment, we have our header section to be using the Flexbox column property, and we're going to now change this to take advantage of the Flex row. We can set this to change on the medium devices and above. So back over to the documentation in the core concept, we can see we have this responsive design section. Inside of here, we have the option to set various utility classes on different screen sizes. We have all screen sizes, which is the default. We can also set classes for small, medium, large, and extra large devices. So currently in the header, we have the flex direction to be column, meaning our elements are stacked vertically. We want to change this to be the direction of row, but only on the medium devices. We can do this with the MD prefix and the colon, and then we can change this to be flex row. So the column layout will apply by default, and then this will change to be row on medium devices. So let's save and refresh. And this now leaves us with a couple of small issues. So the first thing is to push the links over to the right hand side. And we can do this by setting it justify between. We can add this inside of the head section. So justify between will move all of the available spacing in between our two elements. We also now need to make sure that these are on the same line. And we can do this if we scroll down and also remove the padding. For the smaller devices, we set the title of Tailwind Coffee to have this padding on the bottom of 4. We can reset this on medium devices so it doesn't cause any alignment problems. So reset the padding on the bottom to be a value of 0. Reload. And now our links is now aligned with our title. We're now going to move on down below our header section and also our large image and add in our 6 different sections. Scrolling down to the small screen view, all of these items are placed on top of each other. But if we go to the medium devices, we then make use of the CSS grid. So back to the smaller size. And also below our image section, let's add the main section for our content. And each one of our 6 sections is going to be placed inside of the article. An article is a self-contained piece of content. The very first one is going to contain an image, which is going to be the beans.jpg. Followed by the alt text of shop coffee beans. And a lot of this structure will be the same throughout our 6 sections. We're going to create a div section just below this. And this is going to wrap our title and also the text just below. So below our image, we can add a div section. This will first wrap our level 3 heading. And the first one is going to be the text of our coffee beans. After this, we can add a simple P element, which is going to be for the description. I'm going to say bulk bags of our responsibly sourced beans. Now save this and refresh. And we now see our image and also our text. We of course need to add some styling and layout to this section. Let's begin by adding a background color inside of the article tag. The class is going to be for BG Grey. And the shade of 600. Refresh. And this now gives us the dark grey color we see just here. We also have some classes which we can add onto the image too. The first one is going to be to add the rounded corners. So for example, we can add rounded, and this will add rounded corners onto each corner of our image. I'm going to leave this off, however, and set the image to be the full available width. We can do this with W-full, reload, and this will take up all of the available width. We also have some different helpers too. If we go back over to the documentation, if we take a look at the sizing section, under the width we have lots of different values. We can also set this to be a fraction of the available width, such as half, 2/3, and 3/4, for example. So now let's get to work with the section which contains our text. So the wrapper div, we're going to add some utility classes. So let's start with some padding on the y-axis and the value of 8. This is going to add some spacing between our text and image. Down to the title, which is in the level 3 heading section. This is going to have the class of font medium, which is going to be the medium font weight. And also the text size, I'm going to set mine to be text-2XL. This will make our heading larger, since the headings are all the same size when using Tailwind. Also some padding on the bottom and a value of 12. This will give it some spacing from the text just below. Refresh. And now I'm going to copy and paste this article to include this 5 more times. So the second one, this is going to have the image, which is going to be locations. The text inside of the level 3 heading is going to be our locations. And then the P element just below is going to have the description of 50 locations to choose from. The third one, the image is going to be process.jpg. The level 3 heading, which is going to be learn about the process. And then the text right at the very bottom is going to be jump into the art of making great coffee. The fourth one, this is going to be the coffee.jpg. The level 3 heading, this one is simply going to be our coffee. And then the text just below, this text is going to be discover our wide range of blends. The next one, paste this in. The image this time is going to be machines, where we're going to take a look at the available coffee machines which are sold on this site. So we'll say shop coffee machines. And the text at the bottom of make the perfect coffee at home. Finally, the sixth one is going to be for the mugs. The level 3 heading this time is going to be branded mugs. And then check out all of our merch. So once you've done this and repeated this 6 times, now reload the browser. And we should now see all the information inside of here. So the next thing we want to do is to align our text into the center. I'm going to do this on the main wrapper. So this applies to all of the content inside. Tailwind also has a class for this, which is going to be text center. Save and reload. I'm also going to change the text color to be text gray -200. And this now looks fine on the small screen view. If we now stretch this to be a medium size or above, the content now looks a little too stretched. To fix this, I'm going to transform the display type to make use of the grid. We can do this inside of Tailwind by targeting the medium sized devices and then the colon. Set the display type to be grid. We can then set the number of grid columns or grid template rows. I'm going to go for grid columns and set this to be a value of 3. Reload. And this is going to give us 3 columns of content and then repeated for all of our items. We can also add a grid gap to add some spacing between each one of these. I'm going to go for a gap value of 4 Reload the browser, and we now have some spacing between our grid items. Finally, since we also have the spacing value of 4 between each item, I'm also going to match this at the very top of our container. We can do this by adding some margin with the letter M, apply this to the top with T, and then we'll match the same value as our gap. Save and refresh, leaving us with some consistent spacing around all of our items. So this is how quick and easy it is to get started with Tailwind, and how we can make use of the Tailwind utilities to quickly make a good looking responsive site. Of course, there is a lot more to Tailwind than we've covered in this quick introduction video, so I would really encourage you to read through the documentation and also get more familiar with the customization options. So thank you for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this introduction into the Tailwind CSS library. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.